record button now. And also, when we get to the point of public testimony, Chair Conway will announce that to the attendees. If the attendees will go ahead and raise their hand, I will call on them and promote them to speak. Because the chat here is not monitored. So we're trying to refrain from any chatting going on. That's all I have.
Excellent. All right, then, with that in mind, all right. With that in mind, we call the meeting of Beaverton Traffic Commission to order. Today is December 2nd, 2021. It is 7:04 p.m. Thank you, everyone, for attending. We do have a quorum this evening. Thank you, both sergeants, and also thank you to everyone who's attending in our audience to take part, as well as Brian Martin for being part of a presentation. With that in mind, then, we'll begin the evening with roll call. Commissioner Bobadilla.
Present.
Vice Chair McClean.
Present.
Commissioner Moore.
Present.
Commissioner Urbanski.
Present.
And Chair Conway present. We have 2 openings at this point, so we are good to go on that. Thank you. Next up, we do have an offer time for visitors to make a comment on something that is not on the agenda. This would be something other than the presentation or the public hearing on Traffic Commission 826. Is there anyone who needs to make a comment about something related to traffic that is not part of our agenda this evening? I see nothing from Stephanie, so thank you very much. Excellent. Next up then, we'll begin with general staff comments. Mr. Khasho.
I did send you additional written testimony on 8/26 that was received after the packet was delivered. That was last night. And tonight we just received 2 additional written testimony, and I just forwarded to you just a few minutes ago.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up would be the consent agenda. This would be items on the last meeting that we had. We did not meet in November, so the meeting minutes from 10/7. Also, the change to TC 825, the parking restrictions on Southwest 160th Avenue. Baseline Road between J Street, and then the October 7th, 2021 meeting minutes. And 827, the time extension for First Street closure between Watson Avenue and Washington Avenue. We had to make a change in the in 825 this way. So with that in mind, I would make a motion to for the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Okay, motion by Chair Conway, second by Vice Chair McClean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, we have to go around here. Right? I forgot to.
I know. Commissioner Bobadilla.
Aye.
Vice Chair McClean.
Aye.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Commissioner Urbanski.
Aye.
And Chair Conway, aye. Motion passes 5-0 with no abstains or no's. Okay, next up then, we will begin the public hearing portion. We have 1 item on here, Traffic Commission item 826, traffic calming plan for Southwest 155th Avenue between Southwest Cormorant and Southwest Falcon Drive. We'll begin with a reading of the statements at the beginning of this hearing. The Traffic Commission will now hold a hearing on TC 826 regarding the traffic calming. Let me make sure we do this correct. The traffic calming plan on Southwest 155th Avenue between Southwest Cormorant and Southwest Falcon. The hearing will begin with a report from the city traffic engineer, followed by testimony from the person who submitted the proposal. City Traffic Engineer's report will list the applicable substantive criteria and the reasons behind the recommendation. We then hear testimony from other interested parties. If you wish to testify, please clearly state your name, address when given permission to speak on the phone through video. And also please state whether you represent yourself and if you are for or against the motion. Your evidence and testimony must be directed to the criteria in section 6.02.060 determined to be applicable by the city traffic engineer or other criteria, current city, TriMet, metro, state, or federal laws or policies which you believe apply to this decision. After the hearing is closed, the commission will deliberate on the evidence received and make an oral decision to approve with conditions, or deny this proposal. The decision will not be final until a written order is signed by the chairperson, and all persons who do testify will receive a written notice of the final decision of this commission. Decisions of the Traffic Commission and recommendations to City Council become effective upon approval by council. Typically, Traffic Commission recommendations appear on the consent agenda of council and are approved by council without discussion. The City Council ordinarily does not conduct a public hearing on such recommendations. Any decision of the Traffic Commission may be appealed to City Council. When an appeal is properly filed, a separate hearing should be scheduled before council. And any appeal must be filed with the city recorder for 10 days for the date of the Traffic Commission's final written order. Procedures related to the written appeals are available from the office of the city traffic engineer and the city recorder. With that in mind, also a note that due to large numbers of persons who may testify, we will ask to restrict your testimony to no more than a few minutes. And if you are commenting on something that has already been stated, it is perfectly acceptable to state that you support what has already been said and that you concur. If you have anything new to add, then please, by all means, that is welcomed information. With that in mind, then we would open the public hearing and begin with staff report. Mr. Khasho.
Good evening, commissioners and members of the public. The project design for the traffic calming plan on Southwest 155th Avenue was accomplished in accordance with the adopted neighborhood traffic calming program procedures. City staff held virtual neighborhood meetings with residents of Southwest 155th Avenue project area. Actually, we held 3 meetings, one on April 8th, one on May 5th, and one on June 10th of this year. City staff and the residents assessed the various types of traffic calming devices feasible on Southwest 155th Avenue, and solutions were developed for selection and placement of traffic calming devices along the project area. During these meetings, we developed 2 different options. And at the time of choosing the traffic calming devices, all types of devices were on the table to be chosen from. Also, it was open to anybody who probably know of any different device we don't use or seen it somewhere that would work. We would consider that in developing the plan. But 155th Avenue, the width of the street has some restrictions. It's only 34 feet wide. So currently it has 2 12-foot lanes and 5-foot bike lane on each side. So other devices like median islands cannot be installed in the street because there isn't enough width. Basically, it will block the lanes. Curb extensions is the same way. The street already has striping. So the only option was left is either speed humps or speed cushions. But the fire department always choose speed cushions over speed humps because it does not delay emergency response vehicles. On August 16, 2021, the city also held a virtual open house to show the proposed traffic calming plan and to receive feedback from the neighborhood. The proposed plan received high approval from the residents who attended the open house. A support survey was conducted by the city to determine support of the proposed traffic calming plan. On October 1st, 2021, a copy of the proposed plan and a response card were mailed to the residents within the project area in accordance with the neighborhood traffic calming program procedures. Out of 41 response cards that were delivered to the project area, 31 response cards were returned with a yes response. 3 response cards were returned with a no response, and the remaining 7 cards were not returned. The proposed plan for 155th Avenue received an approval rate of 75.6%. This rate exceeds the 67% majority approval required by the neighborhood traffic calming program. The estimated construction cost for the proposed plan is approximately $35,000. This cost estimate is within the amount budgeted for traffic calming in the capital improvement plan for fiscal year 21-22. So tonight we're asking the commission, after hearing testimony from the public, to approve this traffic calming plan. And let me share my screen and to show what's on the plan so other attendees can. Sorry about this. Give me a second. So
No worries at all. Thank you for putting that together while you're doing that, and appreciate the time and effort in this too.
can you see the plan?
Yes, sir, we can.
Yeah. So this is, we have 2 options, option A and option B. And this was the plan that was selected by the residents who attended the meetings. Cormorant Drive is here, and Falcon Drive is here, and then Teal Boulevard. So the intersection of 160th and 155th Avenue here, it's a 4-way stop control. So the first device is 300 feet from that stop control intersection. This is the speed cushion, the first speed cushion. Typically, we space traffic control devices between 300 and 350 feet. So that's what it's based on. So the second speed cushion is also 300 feet from that first one. The third speed cushion is just north of Falcon here. This one is a little tighter because when we work on this plan, the residents wanted a speed cushion near Falcon Drive here because there is a marked crosswalk, and they felt that there is speeding between Teal and the crosswalks. So we added this one. We had to squeeze this one in between. So this one is 25 feet less than normal. Plan A was identical to this plan, but it had only three speed cushions, and it did not have one here. This one was pushed out to this side here. And this is the plan that was chosen by the residents who attended the meeting. With that, I will stop sharing.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Khasho, and definitely appreciate your time and effort on this, especially having just gone through revisiting the traffic calming information that we had and the process. Thank you very much. A lot of good work on that. That being said, though, before we begin the testimony, as I read through it and I looked through the comments, I'd like to make sure that we're clear that the motion today is to accept, and is this A or B? You said there were 2. This is B, or was this?
Yeah, this is B, which was selected between
Okay.
the two.
Right. I wanted to make that clear that the Traffic Commission is voting on accepting option B only as it is done because it meets the 75% passing, and that some of the other recommendations and concerns about add-ons or outside of the area or future scope are not within what is being voted on this evening. The motion and public hearing are to accept option B as selected by the residents who were sent that vote. Is that correct, Mr. Khasho? There were not.
That is correct. And may I make a comment about what happened when the notice of the hearing went out? It seems there was a letter sent out to all the Murray Hill Homeowners Association saying this plan is inappropriate and they needed modern traffic calming devices. But wasn't mentioned what modern traffic calming devices are. When we developed this plan, as I mentioned before, we had every traffic calming device option on the table. And what was chosen is what we can fit on the street itself. So some of the comments, even somebody asked, what is modern traffic calming devices? I mean, it was just thrown at us and figure it out. There was a lot of people who were against the plan because it will affect them because they drive the street every day. Some, they wanted the whole neighborhood, the whole homeowners association to vote on the plan. And we did the process per the adopted traffic calming program.
Thank you, Mr. Khasho. One quick question before Commissioner Urbanski. Could you identify then what, I want to make sure there's a difference between, we're not talking about the NAC, Neighborhood Association Committee, we're for this area, we're talking about an HOA in the area. Is that within the grid, or what I guess, what is that actually, who felt left out, or what?
It's the homeowners association.
Homeowners
HOA.
association. Okay, right. Okay. And that encompasses a greater area beyond.
It's
Falcon.
almost every home in Murray Hill.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner McClean has his hand up.
Yep.
Well,
And
yeah.
Commissioner Urbanski first, I think. I'm sorry. I think I saw that one first.
No
Commissioner
worries.
Urbanski.
My understanding is that the primary benefit of speed humps is to reduce cut-through traffic through neighborhoods, and the speeding, reduction of speeding is almost like a secondary issue. Am I right in thinking in this particular case, there are no complaints about cut-through traffic? This is specifically about reducing the speed through the neighborhood. Is that correct?
Correct. The request came in as a speeding issue.
So, and you mentioned this is going to cost approximately $35,000. How much would those signs where the speed is being indicated, you know, it says slow down or whatever, how much would they cost, just for comparison?
It's when we do the construction, when city forces do the construction, it costs around $10,000 each sign.
So was that an option that people voted on? Because in one of the letters we received, somebody raised that possibility. Why don't we just put up those signs and don't put the speed humps in, which a lot of people just don't want?
The sign option was on the table when we developed the plans, but also speed humps are the best to reduce speeds more than those signs. The signs will do the work, but the speed reduction is not as effective as the speed cushions or speed humps. For those reasons, the speed cushions were picked as the selected device to be on the street.
Okay, one final question. In one of the letters, there was a complaint. It felt like a complaint that people were being surveyed who lived on the street, but there aren't any driveways onto that section of the road. So why are they given the chance to vote, whereas people who use that road every day have no vote? Because usually when a situation like this occurs, there are people who live on that street and have driveways on the street and are directly affected in so many ways. But here, there aren't any driveways opening up onto that section of road, and yet they've got the majority vote here.
Yes, the program is written that every property that abuts the street will have a chance to vote on the plan. Also, 250 feet on the side street. Every home, if it's a cul-de-sac on the side street, the whole cul-de-sac will be included. The reason why it's done this way, because those residents along the street are the most affected by noise. And if this street is, if the home is facing the street, then some people think, you know, they don't want any ugly speed cushions in front of their home too. So those are the two impacts from the traffic calming devices. Some people think it's unsightly. Some people think the signs we put up to warn drivers about speed humps are unsightly too. So that's why they're always included in the selected plan to vote on the plan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair McClean.
Yes, thank you. Mr. Khasho, if approved, what do you anticipate a timeline for construction installation? Obviously, you know, weather dependent, but what do you forecast if approved when this might actually get installed?
Potentially, it could be in May, late spring, early summer. That's when we will have it done.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? Okay, thank you then. Daphne will begin in the order that you, I guess, determine based on if there's people that want to speak.
So far, nobody has their hand up.
Okay, excellent then. This would be the
Anybody?
time.
Oh, now they went up.
Okay, so let's be clear. This would be the time then we'll open for public testimony. Again, we ask that you state your name, your address, and whether you are representing yourself or a group or business, and whether you are for or against the policy. And again, keep in mind that this is within the scope of the area and also the decision that has been voted on by residents who took part in this and the open house information. So with that, we'll begin.
Okay, this is. This is Gary.
All right, Gary, we'll begin with you. Thank you. You might be on mute,
Oh,
sir.
there
We
you go.
cannot hear you.
There I am. Okay. All right. My name is Gary Skousted. I live at 10 435 Southwest Cormorant. I have a couple questions about the. You went over the distances of the speed cushions. One thing that seems a bit of a concern, coming out of the traffic circle, you would have a proposed sign there that would give drivers 100 feet to react, which is a couple seconds, to the oncoming speed bump. On the other side of Cormorant, there's like 300 feet before where the sign would first show up, and then when the first speed bump would come. That seems kind of inconsistent. So that's just one thought. And then I'm just concerned a little bit too about the consistency in the whole I know this is a different issue possibly because of the speed limits, but you go up Cormorant up to 160th, and from Rear Road right past Nancy Riles' school, that whole stretch until it hits 155th is 30 miles an hour. It seems, again, kind of inconsistent to be talking about speed bumps, in a 25 mile an hour zone versus way up there. Why aren't we doing it up there too? So I don't know. It just seems like, I mean, you've got some speed bumps on the other side of 155th as well. But that's a big straight stretch. You're talking about a very curved area here of less than about 900 feet or something. And we've got, or less than, 2 blocks, we've got 4 speed bumps. And you're still, the system, I mean, it's going to be 25 miles an hour speed zone. You can't really, if people go the speed limit, you almost get whiplash going over these speed bumps. So I don't know if you've ever tried it, but anyway, those are just a few thoughts.
All right, thank you. Sir, one question now. Are you within the voting area and did you vote?
I'm not in the voting area. No.
Okay. All right, very good. Just want to make sure we're keeping it on that. Are there questions of Gary? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Stephanie, next.
Okay, Steve A.
Steve, thank you for speaking. Please.
Hi, my name's Steve Allen. I'm at 10740 Southwest Oriole Circle. I was not a voting member of the block. That's two houses up the street from me. I was active in all of the meetings, all 3. The biggest issue is speeding, and it's an issue especially for those people who are on Falcon Court and an Oriole Circle who are trying to make a left-hand turn onto Southwest 155th. It is nearly impossible when cars are coming above speed limit to make a safe turn from those 2 streets onto 155th. I wholeheartedly agree with the project, and I think we should go forward with it.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Are there any questions of Mr. Allen? All right, thank you. Excellent. Ms. Werner, next.
All right, we have, well, this is Gary. I'm not sure if this is the same. Let's go with Jody.
Jody, thank you, please.
Hi, I'm Jody Botchin. I live over at 10030 Southwest Shearwater Loop. I'm just outside of the voting area. However, I did attend.
We lost her.
Oh, I'm not here?
Oh, you're here.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, sorry, my Wi-Fi is a little sketchy. I'll start over. My name is Jody Botchin. I'm at 10030 Southwest Shearwater Loop, just outside the voting area. I did attend all 3 meetings, however, and I just kind of want to state my concerns. I do agree that we do have some issues that need traffic calming. I am, as I said, a resident of Murray Hill and of the Homeowners Association. I am aware of the increased traffic, even using our neighborhood streets as a shortcut. My concern is that I would like the commission to remand this back to staff to actually inventory the existing traffic conditions in the Murray Hill neighborhood, specifically as it pertains not just to the section of 155th, but to Teal and to 160th as well. As one of the previous homeowners stated, 160th is a 30-mile-an-hour road bordering Nancy Riles School, and Teal is actually a 35-mile-an-hour road that goes from Shoals Ferry and actually connects all the way out past the Safeway over to Murray. My concern is, how will the proposed traffic calming to 155th and these speed bumps affect the traffic conditions on both Teal Boulevard and 160th? And actually, how do those conditions compare with the existing conditions? And I'm actually just looking for traffic calming, kind of more of a comprehensive thing, like just that we look at the whole picture before we just kind of do this just one little section, because we have cars that are, going through this neighborhood, and I use these roads every day. And my concern is that you're going to kind of frustrate these drivers with these speed bumps on this little section, and then they're going to go fly down Teal Boulevard, or they're going to go fly up 160th past Nancy Riles. And we've got people trying to use those crosswalks. And honestly, I just really want to have my streets to be safe for me, children, people walking their dogs, people on their bikes. And I'm just looking for my neighborhood to just be safe, and for us to just kind of think about this whole, these streets as a whole, and not just, this one specific area. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. One question: when the proposal was brought up and it was requested based on speed, was a comprehensive discussion?
No, those were shot
brought up?
down. Those were shot down.
Okay,
When we were trying to bring those questions up, we were told that this project only was going to be, basically the only things we were going to talk about was just the 155th area. We
okay,
did have several residents mention Teal and 160th.
okay. So are you thinking about a comprehensive plan then as a follow-up?
Yeah, like instead of just voting on this, I kind of just want this to be remanded just for more information, just to be able to, remand it back to just, we don't know what the existing, I'd like to know, frankly, what are we seeing currently? And if we put these speed bumps in, what is going to happen to those, those bordering streets?
Right. So we've seen that very same question in pretty much every traffic calming project. So thank you. Any other questions of Commission? Ms. Bachin, thank you very much.
Thanks.
All right. Ms. Werner, next.
Yes, I have Amy Thomas.
Ms. Thomas, when you are ready. We cannot hear you.
You hear me?
We can now.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, I'm Michael Thomas. I'm actually Amy's husband, and
Okay.
yeah, I'm 10845 Southwest Falcon Court. So I actually do live in the voting area, and we voted for it, for this traffic calming plan. And I just want to say that as we turn out of Falcon Court, left or right, especially left, we're right after the traffic circle, and it seems a lot of cars come out of that circle, guns a-blazing. They're accelerating. They're not looking to beat the speed limit. That they're really starting to take off, and then towards the right, they come kind of flying down too. So I mean, there's definitely, we're all in favor of the speed cushions. It's really important. And as far as speed cushions or options in other areas, I'd be open to that. This is about just this one specific plan. This was put forth for this area. It makes sense. I mean, I think you could expand beyond even 160th and Teal. You could keep going out further and further. And how does this impact traffic over here? And then what's it do for over there? And I see that point. But again, we're focused on this, just this one area, and we're in favor of it. And I don't think any larger comprehensive study to go beyond this should derail it. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Any questions of Commission? All right, seeing none, thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Thomas. Ms. Werner?
There are
that
no
good?
more. Oh, there's a hand raised. Les Tovani.
Mr. Tovani, when you are ready.
Yes, this is Les Tovani. I live at 10761 Oriole Circle. I am within the voting block that and submitted my card in favor of the traffic calming. I echo the comment just previously about the speed coming off of the traffic circle and coming from the stop sign, because I'm exiting there at Cormorant. Again, going left or right, the speed is greater than 25, which is the posted speed limit. And if somebody were to say, we put signs up there to slow traffic down, it doesn't slow anybody down. And so I'm definitely in favor of having this traffic calming speed bumps installed.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that. And definitely appreciate everyone's comments, taking that time to take part in the process. Any questions of commission? All right, perfect. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Mr. Devani. Ms. Werner, are there any other?
Yes, I have Angela G.
Excellent.
Hey there, this is actually Ryan Van Duzen.
Oh,
We live at 10905 Southwest Falcon Court. We are in the voting area and attended all the meetings and voted in favor of this. Want to mention, through the process, there has been frustrations on solutions and how we've kind of come to where we're at, mainly around, how things were constructed 10 years ago and what the rules were on crosswalks and signage and things like that. For example, coming out of Falcon Court, there is a crosswalk. And one of the things I proposed to Jabra was, for that crosswalk, at least put some signs up, because we walk the dog, the kids walk across for school bus. There's literally there's nothing there to say, hey, there's a crosswalk coming up, and people are coming from either direction. And when you talk about giving a heads up to a speed hump or whatever, like a crosswalk is probably, I would think, more important for signage. So that's just one point, right? Like, I think crosswalks need to be marked for safety. Another point is we're acting like the cushions are a new concept, but literally on the north side of 155th towards Weir, there's cushions there. Like, this is not a surprise to people, right? So we're acting like this is a new thing, but the point that was made about people running over cushions and then being angry, driving down Teal and rambunctious because they just went over speed humps, like, all right, I'll take that point, and maybe that's why people are speeding, past, down 155th to the circle. So, yeah, I'll take that as a point of, why people are hauling through here to the traffic circle. I run, I walk, I do all these things, and daily, like, I've thought about just putting a camera on me to like give footage or give like my home security footage to you guys to show, like, literally every day people pull out of Falcon Court. Our house is right here. We hear the horns, we hear it all. I've talked to the officers, they've done the surveys. We know the average speed is above 35 miles an hour. I mean, I honestly don't, the humps suck, like, I agree, but I've asked for other things, right? Signage for the crosswalk, a blinky light, like something that just gets somebody's attention to say, hey, like, maybe I shouldn't be going 35. And even friends that I've talked to, they don't even know. Jabra put in an extra 25 sign in there, but some people don't even know that the speed limit was 25, and they honestly are not speeding, intentionally or to be, I don't know. I guess those are all my kind of points, but there's a lot that goes into this. And I think mainly it's safety. Like, we literally sometimes have to try to pull out 3 times. And each time you try to pull out, you're further and further into the road. So, like, at that point, someone's going to take off the front of your car, or, it's, I don't know. And there have been accidents, and the officers, I mean, Jabra, we have all the data to show the average speed and the accidents that have happened. So it's not a trivial thing. There is safety, and that's where we're at. Thank you. That's all I got.
And thank you, Ryan. Appreciate that. Are there any questions to staff or the commission? Ryan, thank you so much. Appreciate those comments too. It's some good stuff. Is there any other one? All right.
One last one is Carol.
Excellent. Carol, please begin when you are ready.
Okay. I'm speaking for Carol. I'm her husband, and we live at 10445 Southwest Sherwood. We've lived here for about 30 years now, And I just want to say we support this plan. People really drive fast through here. And to be honest, I've been passed on that street right in that area on a few occasions. So I know the speed and traffic that goes through there. I also know from quite a few years ago, somebody must have really been going through there fast early in the morning when I was on the way to work. They skipped the island and landed on the roof of their car in the parking lot of the hometown center. So that's just an indication of how out of control it can get down there. So to me, I think Jabra is right on target with what he wants to do. And I think the people that have the right to vote on that have made the right decision. And safety is what this is all about. And people just haul through this neighborhood. They blow off stop signs, as the police officers probably know. And we just want to say we support it. And maybe at a later date, we can go into more of a comprehensive neighborhood assessment of the traffic. So thanks a lot and good luck.
All right, thank you. Appreciate that.
Can you tell me your name? I didn't get it.
Okay, I'm Larry Snyder and my wife is Carol.
Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right, and I believe Ms. Warner, you said that was the last hand that was raised.
That is the last hand that is raised, yes.
Excellent, then.
Oh,
we
wait.
will-
Are you entertaining someone who's already testified to re-testify?
Quickly, if there's a comment, yeah, we'll.
All right, this is
Let's see
Jody
what-
again.
I just wanted to just comment on the last person said, just to clarify. I think what he was saying is that I think it's a neighborhood as a whole with the speeding problem, because the part with the hometown center would actually be Teal Boulevard. And that was, again, part of what my concern was, because Teal is a 35-mile-an-hour road right now that goes through the neighborhood, and people go above 50 miles an hour on Teal. Hence the flipping over of cars and the accidents on Teal Boulevard, and the problems with the crosswalks of people trying to cross Teal Boulevard with people going that fast in a neighborhood. So again, my concern is just like, let's not be so preoccupied with this one little section, which is important. And I'm not denying the fact that the safety of 155th is important, it is, but like, let's try to keep in mind there's 700 houses in Murray Hill, and let's keep in mind that we want to think about the safety of all of us as a community, and not just 42 houses that were able to vote on this. I just want my neighborhood to be safe for all of us. And my concern again is just by, protecting this one section, I'm concerned without further study of what the effects are going to be, that this is going to cause more accidents on Teal, more accidents on 160th, and pedestrian casualties. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that follow-up. Commissioner Urbanski?
Yeah, question for Jody. So Jody, if you had your way, would you put traffic calming devices all along 155th and 160th and also Teal Boulevard? Is that what you envision?
Well, first I would want a full study, first of all, like maybe get some sort of consultant or something. Like I would want to have a study on like, what are those going to affect? Like if you put that in the middle of 155th, then what happens to 160th? If you put that on 150th, what happens to Teal? That might be the solution, is to put traffic calming on that entire stretch from Teal that hits Shoals Ferry all the way to Teal that hits Murray, all the way up to 160th that hits Weir, because people are using that as a cut through to get around the traffic on Murray and Shoals Ferry as we get so much more construction in this area. So that might be what we want. My concern is that, like, I don't want to say we have to have this solution and this solution, this solution before I actually want, I just want to know what's the data. And I don't feel like the studies are there. So I actually just want there to be a consultant or somebody to show, like, this is what's going to happen to 160th if we do this. And it might be that we need it on all of them. I'm not saying we don't, we probably do. But I just hesitate on a hastiness of going through with something without having all the data.
Well, I'm glad you clarified, because initially you gave the impression that you were giving an answer and we didn't even know what the problem was. So I'm glad you're for doing more thorough investigation to see what the nature of the problem is before we start,
Yeah, and I'm not saying that we don't need
Yeah.
calming on 150th. I know there's a problem and I know there's safety issues there, but there's also safety issues on Teal. And we've been asking for safety, fixing of Teal for a long time. And 160th now is another issue. And we have a school right there. And right now there's just a little flashing light that, goes on for 15, 20 minutes just when those kids are crossing. But like, that's a 30-mile-an-hour road, and you're going to have people now trying alternate routes now if there's speed bumps there to try to get around there. And as I said, I just don't want people to be run over just trying to enjoy our neighborhood.
well, none of us want that.
No, I obviously, and that sounds like I'm creating a false argument. I totally get that, and I don't mean to sound over dramatic. My concern is just that, just like everybody, all the people that live in the voting area, I want a safe neighborhood too. And I just want to make sure that we think about everything and think of Teal and think of 160th. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Other questions? All right, then, thank you for that follow-up and appreciate that. With that in mind, then, we will close the public testimony portion. Mr. Khasho, follow-up comments on what was mentioned.
Yes, please. Regarding the signs for the crosswalk that Ryan mentioned, we did install pedestrian crossing signs at the crosswalks on 155th at Falcon. After I received the request from him, the signs were installed. Regarding Teal Boulevard, and Teal Boulevard was mentioned during the meetings to have traffic calming devices on it. The street was not, we did not receive a request prior to working on 155th to go through the process to do speed studies. Is there a speeding issue or not? But the number one issue with Teal Boulevard, the posted speed limit on it, it's 35 miles per hour. It's classified as a collector street, and you cannot have, traditional traffic calming devices. Even the program, it will not allow any traffic calming devices for streets that above 30 miles per hour. And at the meeting, it was mentioned they would like to lower the speed. In previous years, we did receive requests to lower the speed on Teal Boulevard, and we had several attempts to do it. And at the time, Oregon Department of Transportation, or the state, was basing the posted speed limit on the 85th percentile speed. And the 85th percentile speed was always between 35 and 40 miles per hour. So it did not have a chance to lower the speed. But early last year, the state changed the rules for urban areas. And if you remember, we brought to the commission other streets to lower the speed on. So after those meetings, we will be doing a speed study on Teal Boulevard to see if it doesn't qualify for the state to accept to lower the speed maybe to 30. So we will be doing speed studies on it. Then it will be decided, if the state will allow, will approve reducing the speed on Teal Boulevard, we will reduce it. And then if the neighborhood wants to consider traffic calming devices on it, then it's eligible for traffic calming devices, and we'll do it. For 160th and the potential cut through traffic and speeding, typically we consider the streets if it's going to be affected by the installation of traffic calming devices. Typically those streets are parallel to the street that you are treating, and it has the same connectivity or almost the same length or maybe a little longer. So drivers tend to move over to that street and cut through the other neighborhood to avoid the speed humps or whatever traffic calming devices we have. But 160th, nobody will do this because it goes north-south. I mean, it's a long trip to go through Weir Road and come through 160th to avoid those speed humps. It will take you longer to drive than going through that short section of 155th Avenue. So the cut-through traffic, it will not happen because of the speed humps. There was also talk about there will be some frustration and the drivers will be going faster because of the speed humps. Currently, both intersections, 155th Avenue and 160th, it's an always stop control. Also, the traffic circle at 155th Avenue, it is a stop control. So it's already drivers are stopping at the stop sign before they go in. So I don't see that frustration from going over the speed humps. And if you actually drive the speed limit, going over those speed cushions, it's not bad. The minute you start going over 25, 30, that's when you feel the jot and it will force you to slow down. But if you drive the speed limit, it's like driving on any street almost. And there was also some comments about looking at the whole neighborhood. This is a huge area. And to do just the whole neighborhood, it's kind of, I mean, we could do speed study, but the majority of those side streets, residential, truly residential streets, you will not have any speeding issue. I could see, yeah, Teal Boulevard has it. 160th in the past, we received requests for traffic calming and it never made the speed was not above 30 miles per hour, above 35 miles per hour. The 85th percentile speed was not above 35 miles per hour to be eligible for traffic calming. But if the neighborhood is interested in having traffic calming on 160th, please fill a request online or send me an email. We'll evaluate the street if it qualifies or not. Those are all the comments I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Khasho. One follow-up that I didn't hear, or maybe it was in there and I missed it, was, is there, so Teal is 35 because it is an arterial, but then 160th is 30 currently. Is that because it is a, or sorry, not a arterial, it's a collector. Is that a collector?
Yeah, 160th is a collector, Teal is a collector, and the piece between 160th and Teal, 155th is a collector too.
Oh, from, that would be from 160th to the roundabout?
Yes, actually 155th, it's a collector from Davis Road all the way to the roundabout.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you for that clarification. Appreciate it. So if that's the case, then why to answer, I guess, one of the questions that that section is 25, but the other part of 160th as a collector is 30, and the other part of the collector at Teal is 35.
As I mentioned in the past, that's the speed limit was based on the 85th percentile speed. And okay, when they posted the speed limit on those streets, it was based on that. And that's why maybe the speed was higher and it was posted 30 and so forth.
Gotcha. Very good. Thank you.
Commissioner Bobadilla has her hand up.
Oh, there it is. Thank you. Appreciate that. Commissioner Bobadilla.
Thank you. Just one question for Jabra and one question, comment for Ms. Werner. Can it please be put on the record that anybody that has put a chat, there's a lot of chats there, that's not part of the record. So if people want to testify, they need to make sure they raise their hand, or whatever's put in the chat is not going to be considered for the commission to take into account or for the record. Just wanted to say that. But now my question to you, Jabra. Given all the information you shared with us, there was one more comment about whether speed cushions would actually result in more crashes. Has that happened? I'm just,
no.
I don't, okay, so I thought, thank you.
Speed cushions and speed bumps or speed humps, there was many studies looked at, it does not increase crashes, no.
Excellent, thank you. Are there other questions?
Thank you, Chair Conway.
Thank you, and apologies for missing. That was kind of, you're on my screen right now, you're up in the top corner, so that's always kind of, I think I did that to Vice Chair McClean last month because the hand went right up in the corner of the bookshelf, I think, and it felt terrible at that, so apologies on that. All right, are there other questions? Otherwise, we would entertain a motion to approve as written, approve changes or deny. Hand up, Vice Chair McClean.
Well,
And
no
then go back
questions,
to
but
Commissioner Bobadilla.
no question for staff, but I think, if we want to go around the commissioners to do any deliberations before we, vote or make a motion, I just wanted to say, and this is a kind of a complex topic and there's a lot of points everybody's making. So I just want to kind of recap from the beginning that obviously there is a need for traffic calming on the street. The study was done and there are, statistical information that people are not abiding by the speed limit. So I think the traffic calming project in whole can sometimes be very complicated. Where is it something where we can change the design of the street versus using enforcement? And like staff mentioned, residential streets versus our collectors, there's different criteria we have to follow. So I think, based on having those three, public hearings, having community involvement, getting everybody to have an opinion, it's hard to get everyone to agree on the same plan, but it seems like this was the most popular plan, that option B. So I'd be in favor of, voting yes on that. I think, we got at least 31 votes or 75% of the people that had the opportunity to vote want that. Like we talked about before, the calming devices is not going to hurt safety. It's only going to help. It's not going to make things worse. So I think, going forward, there's additional work that can be done and other studies can be done and make sure that, we're not making adverse challenges for other neighborhoods. But I think based on, the information we have, we're not going to make things worse. It's actually just going to make this neighborhood better and it will help overall. I think the areas that we can't change the design, we should also remind there are opportunities to contact the Beaverton Police to help with enforcement. If people are consistently speeding on Teal, that I think would be a great opportunity for the Beaverton Police to look at, putting those photo radar or other type of opportunities to try to, do enforcement or education where possible, when the design of the street is not something that easily can be changed. So I just wanted to share those and just say I'd be in favor of this.
Excellent, thank you. Commissioner Urbanski?
Question for Jabra Khasho. So if Teal, if the speed limit was dropped to 25, let's say in the future, and somebody put the motion to put traffic calming devices on Teal, how would we do the survey there? Because there's a big section of Teal north of that roundabout where there are no houses actually on it. As it bends round to the east and then ends up down by Safeway, there are no actual houses on it. So who would vote on something like that?
This will be a tough one. It will be the property, the first property that's close to the street, basically. I mean, I have to look at the layout of the neighborhood to tell you this. There are some homes, but they're tucked away a little bit more than 155th. The back of the homes are against Teal Boulevard. There are apartments on Teal Boulevard too, so they all vote on the plan potentially.
I'm just thinking if we need to change the rules for something like that, because there are a lot of users on that road who don't actually live there, which is in contrast to the issue we're discussing today, where there are a lot of people who live in that kind of dangerous section of the road, that blind bend. So I'm just trying to plant the seeds for the future. So when we come back to discussing something like that, we know what the ground rules are.
Yeah, we need to look at the layout of this street and the homes, how they're laid out and how far are from the street.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Urbanski.
I have a question. Have
Yes,
you
Ms.
closed?
Warner.
Have you closed public testimony, or do you want to make sure that people who wrote in the chat don't want to testify?
technically we have, but I believe that the folks that have tested, there are only a couple of comments that were not. So I would entertain those folks who have commented in chat who did not speak. This is their, I would allow that as a point from Commissioner Bobadilla. We should probably include that in future meetings. I don't think we've had an issue with it up to now. So yes, if there's someone who did not speak, who did comment in chat, we would allow a follow-up for them to make a comment that is basically to include their chat comment into the record. Is there any? Mr. Khasho?
Mr. Chair, I believe during the hearing, they have to testify in person.
Sure.
The chat will not count as
No,
testimony.
That's what we're trying to.
That's what I'm
That's what we're
doing. I
trying to get
will allow the person who did not already speak that put something into the chat to state what they put into chat into the record, which would be Ryan Jabra or John Vogler.
Okay, Ryan.
The other ones had already commented.
Ryan raised his hand.
Okay, we'd allow that then.
Okay, here's Ryan.
Mr. Jabra?
Hey everyone, thanks for letting me know that my comments didn't count. I'm Ryan Tabra on Oriole Circle, 10772 Southwest Oriole Circle. I voted for this. Been here for over 10 years, watched kids almost get killed, heard about car accidents, see speeding every day. I can appreciate the rest of the neighborhood wanting to solve all of the neighborhood speed issues, but we've been waiting a long time. And I just think this is the best solution for this one area. And as a neighborhood in this small area, we banded together to make this happen. And we just appreciate all the work and the thought put into this, and just can't wait for it to happen.
Excellent. All right, thank you. Appreciate that. Glad we got that in there. Was there other?
There's one more, John Vogler.
All right, very good, Mr. Vogler.
This is John Vogler. We live at 10580 Southwest Cormorant. We're outside the voting area, but we have lived here since the beginning of Murray Hill. And we have walked daily. We walk our dog daily. I can't tell you how many crazy things I've seen down on Southwest 155th. I totally support the speed humps. We have participated in all of these meetings. We really appreciate the thoughtful process and Jabra's insightful leadership and others. I'm bewildered that people weigh in here in the kind of the fourth quarter and want to hire consultants and address issues on other streets. They should have been participating in this process from the beginning and not calling into question the good progress that's been made on Southwest 155th. So I would strongly encourage this group to press forward and let's get this improvement done on Southwest 155th before something really bad happens. And again, thank you to all of you that have contributed to the good progress so far.
Thank you. Questions? All right, thank you, Mr. Vogler. Appreciate that. Good point to add those in next time and make a note on that at the beginning. So we'll have to add myself a note to that process. All right, with that in mind then, Ms. Werner, were there other comments? Okay, then perfect. Thank you. Follow up then to what Vice Chair McClean had said. I agree with the process. I believe that first off, thank you everyone for attending. Thank you for taking part in this and everyone that commented. Appreciate all of the comments. A lot of good points. I will say that having just reviewed the traffic calming program as a whole several months in a row, This commission has gone through a lot of work to get a lot of changes done. And I think having seen the voting information, I'd like to commend Mr. Khasho for getting that's 34 out of 41 home. That is an excellent amount of reply and response, which shows a huge amount of interest. Also, there were several comments and some emails I see from outside of the area. So well done on that. I would encourage the community as a whole and the HOA to consider talking to the NAC and also reaching out to the folks on Wilson, who also have gone through the exact same consideration process for a large, long road and what the implication is. They also have a school in the middle. They're on the record as saying people just run the stop sign in front of the school. I would be taking care of that pretty quick if I lived in that area, but I would recommend that perhaps the BCCI would be a good one, the Beaverton Committee for Citizen Involvement, maybe be reached out and have both NACs have some sort of joint meeting so that they can talk about the approach as a holistic view. But right now, the scope of this project, totally agree. Commissioner Moore, any comments?
I simply concur.
Excellent. Anything else, Commissioner Bobadilla?
Thank you. No, it's just I'm also in support of the project. It is a very difficult situation. I'm actually very familiar with the area and all the issues with it. The reality, as even part of this committee, we can't solve all the problems. If not, we would actually be out of a job by now. We're trying, and everybody that's participating in the community, we hope that you feel that your voice isn't being ignored and actually maybe volunteer for this committee. Put your name in.
Excellent. Yeah, the last comment on that, I think there definitely are some opportunities to consider how to address that connection to work. So there are many facets of that. I know that the issues and questions that have come up would be excellent to work with the city about the impact of the traffic calming that have already passed, that have already been successful. 24 years, 22 years, Mr. Khasho, of the program has been very successful, and the impact to side roads has always been a consideration. And as we find out that we're not getting any smaller, the roads are not going to get bigger, we're going to get more and more people. So there are going to need to be some definite holistic views on that. With that in mind, I would make a motion to approve as written TC 826. Oh, got it. Moments here. I just hit my screensaver in trying to. There it is. I'd make a motion to approve as written TC 826 traffic calming plan for Southwest 155th between Southwest Cormorant Drive and Southwest Falcon Drive.
I'll second the motion.
Commissioner McClean, second. Any final discussion? Okay, roll call then. Commissioner Bobadilla?
Aye.
Vice Chair McClean?
Yes.
Commissioner Moore?
Aye.
Commissioner Urbanski?
Aye.
Chair Conway? Aye. And that then motion passes unanimous. So thank you. And again, I thank everyone for their time and effort and everyone who's been involved. And again, compliments to the city for all the information. I think even the comments in the chat indicate that everyone felt they had a voice in the entire process, which is an excellent, excellent job. With that in mind, then we will move to the next portion, and that is our presentation. We appreciate time to wait on that. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Martin. Appreciate that. Jabra, do you need to do an intro or? Welcome, Martin. Oh, you're on mute, sir.
I think you already introduced Mr. Martin. He's a planning manager in the community development department, and he will be doing his presentation about the housing options. Yeah.
Excellent.
Chair, good evening, Chair Conway and commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect. Thank you.
All right, and you can see the presentation?
I can indeed, yes.
All right, I'm off to a good start. My name is Brian Martin. I'm the long range planning manager for the city of Beaverton. The project manager, Rob Zeller, couldn't make it tonight, so I'm filling in for him. Do my best. His contact information, though, will be at the end of the presentation if folks want to contact him about the project. So thank you for the opportunity to provide some information about the Housing Options Project tonight. This is about the city's approach to allowing housing variety in Beaverton's residential neighborhoods. And I'll try to put some focus on the parking requirement part of that effort tonight. So this presentation will start with a little bit of background about how the state land use planning system influences our work, and some info about a 2019 state law, House Bill 2001, which is also referred to as HB 2001, which requires the city to allow additional housing variety in neighborhoods. Then I will describe the city's housing options project, and in particular, as I mentioned, the parking rules that are relevant, very relevant to the commission. The goal of the project is to update the development code and actually the comprehensive plan as well to allow a mix of housing types at a range of sizes and price levels in the city's residential areas. It actually started in 2018 before that law passed, and it's generated in part from a city comprehensive plan policy that promotes encouraging residential housing diversity. The basic schedule is, this has been going on now since 2018. We took a pause while the law was getting sorted out. And we're getting toward the end now. So we went through doing our homework, trying to understand issues in the city and how housing works now and the law. We explored different alternatives. The community and planning commission and the council helped us pick a preferred alternative. And now we're into the final phase where we're writing development code provisions, just getting started on that. And you'll see a lot more about that early next year. So quick on the planning system in Oregon. It's kind of a unique system in the country with a lot of guidance and rules at the state level that actually influence how we work. Since the 70s, the state has required cities and counties to have comprehensive plans consistent with the statewide planning goals. And the comp plan actually has to be consistent with the regional plans as well for metro. Metro areas in the state also have urban growth boundaries that concentrate urban development inside the boundary to protect farms, forests, and natural areas outside the boundary. I mentioned the statewide planning goals. These are them. I'm not going to read all this to you. I grayed out the ones that don't really apply to Beaverton. The ones that are in black do. The goal 10 housing is probably the most prominent goal that influences this project. But of course, you see other related ones on there about natural resources and transportation and such. The region's urban growth boundary, at least half of it, because it doesn't all fit on the screen, so I cut it in half, is a picture on the slide. The city of Portland, like downtown, is over here on the right. See if I can get my pointer back. There we go. Over here on the right. Downtown Beaverton's right here in the middle. So this is really a picture of how the region is organized. You've got inside this boundary here, urban, and then out here is rural. We're required to have Metro is required to have a 20-year supply of land inside that boundary. So the purple areas are centers like downtown Beaverton, where there's more housing, more jobs, in more dense format. And then this project really focused on the yellow areas, which are residential neighborhoods. The city implements the state rules and metro rules through our comprehensive plan, which sets goals and policies for the city, including for residential areas. That's actually the land use map from the comp plan, and the yellow and light brown areas are the focus of this project. And then we actually implement the goals in the comp plan through the development code, which is the rules for development. So if you come in for an apartment complex or a house, those are the rules you have to follow if you're developing. So now about that law that I'm talking about. House Bill 2001 requires basically cities to allow new housing types in areas that allow single detached houses. You know, the one house on the one lot. If you allow that, then you have to allow these other things, including duplexes, which is 2 units, triplexes, which is 3 units, quadplexes, which is 4, townhouses, which actually is, you're probably familiar with these, but they actually are an ownership type 2. Like there's each lot is individually owned, and you can see the ones from Beaverton actually on the bottom right. They're typically attached typically in groups of 4 or 5 or so, but each is individually owned underneath with a lot underneath. But the big take home from House Bill 2001 is on every lot where we allow single family homes, we have to allow duplexes, and all the other middle housing has to be allowed in the area as well, which translates to most lots. As the very complex rules kind of trickle down, that's really what it means. And just a quick photograph to kind of show what some of those might look like, or actually some of these are in Beaverton already. So the duplex, 2 units, triplex, 3 units, a little hard to see, but it's an L-shaped building. It's 1 story, there's 3 units in there. Quadplex, this is actually 2 buildings with 2 units each, but it's on 1 lot. And then a cottage cluster, small buildings grouped around open space, typically. Some of the reasons that were provided for the bill by House Speaker Kotek or housing advocates were to add supply because housing is needed to meet people's needs and to try to suppress rising housing costs. People have a variety of needs, as I just said, including potentially some smaller units and more rental opportunities in neighborhoods. And also Oregon cities, including Beaverton, have residential segregation by race, ethnicity, income in some locations. And public and private actions, including zoning, have helped contribute to that. So this has led to this is part of the picture that's led to disparate outcomes for Black, Indigenous, and people of color regarding such measures as well, income, health, and education. And this graphic is a couple years old, so the numbers might have changed a little bit since then. But you can see, this is from our housing 5-year action plan. You know, a significant number of renters, for example, are challenged to pay the rent. They're spending a large percentage of their income on rent. We've got a relatively, I mean, 1% of poverty is like a thing, but you know, it's in this case it was about 12%. So there are definitely some people having challenges finding the housing they need. We're also using a racial equity tool for this project to guide our work. And we're using a tool that's specifically designed for local governments. And among other things, this really involves studying existing inequities, identifying racist actions that have helped reinforce present-day segregation, and evaluating whether proposals in this effort are likely to produce the desired outcomes, which are reduced inequity and a more equitable future for Beaverton. Some of the specific actions from the past that are in play here are, some of them are pretty obvious and bold from the way back past, where there were racist covenants that said only white or Caucasian people could own homes or live in the homes. And we actually found some of those in West Slope in research over the last year. Those aren't enforceable anymore. The Supreme Court ruled those that cannot be enforced, but it was part of the story in our distant past. in the early part of last century. Other things that influenced these patterns are single-family only residential zones, just because they don't allow other options that other people might be able to access. And other things like large minimum lot sizes, increased setbacks, and sometimes design standards can add cost to homes, which is, can contribute to segregation by income. And we still see this today. So data show that some portions of the residentially zoned areas in Beaverton have high percentages of white residences. Here we're looking at those blue areas that are somewhere between 76 and 89% white, depending on the different part you're looking at. And then some of the code provisions played a part that we have now in creating those places, the segregated places. So allowing additional housing types in residential neighborhoods will provide more options, more configurations for a wider variety of people and their needs, and should allow people's individual choices to make neighborhoods less segregated by income, race, and ethnicity. It's just opportunities and lots of individual property owners and people looking for housing making decisions. We do expect these changes, by the way, to be relatively modest and gradual, with a limited number of property owners deciding to make these changes in any given year. And making changes, I mean, like adding different housing types to property in neighborhoods. I also acknowledge zoning is only one piece of the puzzle here, but it's the piece that we're working on right now. Okay, so that was a lot of the background. Thanks for your patience on that. Wanted to describe the preferred approach as it stands so far, which I mentioned before. We worked with community members, planning commission, and the council earlier last year, or actually this year, it's only December, to develop kind of a package that we thought made sense to implement the law into our comp plan. These are 10 strategies that we are using as that package, but I'm going to focus on 5 of them in the interest of time. But commissioners can always ask questions about the other pieces. Okay, so the 3 sort of themes or pillars of this is flexibility, which is zoning flexibility to allow more housing variety. Context, because some of the rules we heard during engagement that people wanted some of the rules to respond to the context, whether it was the site or the neighborhood. So some of them do that. And then community. There was a theme that folks really wanted places to meet their neighbors and have some interactions, which could be as simple as just requiring some open space on the site in some situations. It's not required community or neighborliness, but it provides the opportunity for it to happen. All right. So I thought it'd be good to start with how does zoning work now? So it's easier to understand the changes when we see the new ideas. This is an existing R7 zone in our city as an example, and that would you would think what you might see in that zone is a lot of 7,000 square foot lots or so, and what we allow now is shown by this clear box over here. So it allows 35 feet tall, which could be 3 stories, and there's 5-foot setbacks and some larger front and rear setbacks, but it allows a pretty large amount of development today, even though usually you see less, but that's the total allowed right now. Most of this area, I think the entire district, is only single family detached homes are allowed for residential, plus accessory dwelling units are allowed too. And we require 1 parking space per house as a minimum. So that's some of the highlights of how it works now. With the preferred approach, some things change. Property owners can have, I will add for reference, these lots are 5,000 square feet to reflect that you can have smaller lots in that district, in that same geography now. And you can have things like duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, and cottage clusters. Although cottage clusters, you need the 7,000 square foot lot to do. And you can even divide these lots up and build individual townhomes on them as well with the new preferred approach. In this particular RMC zone, which we'll hear more about later, we actually shrank the volume at the front and the back a little bit. That helps make it look more like a two-story building from the street, and reduces some shadowing and sort of privacy concerns, addresses some of the privacy concerns people expressed during the project. And you know, you can still do single family house. It's fine. You can do one with a duplex, but you can also do a triplex. It's just an illustration to show some variety. And the parking requirements depend on the lot size, the housing type, and the neighborhood context. So there's too much to explain on this graphics. I'll get to that in a little bit. Okay, so starting with some of the basics, here's the big four strategies before I get to the parking. The major changes here, one of them is to merge the 6 zones that we have now into 4. The basic idea is because all of them allow a mix of housing, there really wasn't enough difference between different areas to need 6 zones anymore. So we went down to 4. And the 3 residential mixed zones are really the focus of the project. They're what's being affected by the project. This R1, this formerly R1, we're not changing that because single family detached homes aren't allowed. We just renamed it. So we're not really talking about that tonight. That's the dark brown or gray brown area. We're really looking at the light yellow, medium yellow, and light gray. So as the table shows, each zone has minimum lot sizes for each housing type. And I hope you can see this, but we have to allow townhomes, so we have to have lots that are small and are townhouse sized. So that's why those numbers are smaller. And then let's just do the B, which is used to be with the B here. If you want to put a single family house or a duplex, the lot has to be 3,500 square feet. If you want to do a triplex, it has to be at least 4,000. And for a cottage cluster, you need to find a 7,000 square foot lot. That's how it works. The minimum density is also shown here. That's how many units per acre you need to have on the site. And it's pretty similar, but in some cases a little bit more than our old districts, but not dramatically. And that's the minimum expectation the city's putting on the land to efficiently use the land inside the urban growth. I guess the takeaway from all those words and numbers is most lots in the city will have a variety of options for what housing types, and your minimum lot sizes are generally smaller within the city. If people wanted to divide a lot into 2 and put a couple of different houses on it, they probably could in one of these options. Okay, so parking. As an introduction to this, I wanted to explain the state requirements that really, like, this is our universe of what we can do. We can't do whatever we want, so it's good to know like what the law says. And here I'm going to be talking about minimum parking requirements. So if you do a development, if you take a single family house and convert it to a triplex, or you build 2 other units on the lot, make a triplex, for example, you would have to follow these new rules if the council passes them next year. So the most parking we could require for a duplex for a minimum is 2. A developer or property owner could put more on if they want. There's no cap on the number they do. This is the minimum expectation. For triplexes, it starts at 3 spaces for a triplex, which is 1 per unit on larger lots, 5,000 square feet and greater. But the law says as the lot gets smaller, you can't require as many. So here you see it drops down to 2 for smaller lots. And moving on to the quadplexes, same story as the triplexes. You just start at 4 and 7,000 square feet, and you work your way down. This is the most amount of parking we can require someone to build as a minimum, and they can always put more. And for townhouses and cottage clusters, it's 1 per unit. So that's the state rules. And the city's proposal so far, this is all draft code that we're doing. We're going to talk to folks about this the beginning of next year. Is no minimum parking requirements for single-family detached homes, duplexes, and townhomes and accessory dwelling units. With the first 3, it's pretty common that even if there's none required, developers would provide those. Sometimes they might not, but usually they would, because people who are buying those typically expect parking, especially single detached homes and townhomes. I believe we can't require parking for accessory dwelling units because of another state law, so that's why that's that way too. For triplexes, the minimum requirement starts at the most we can do. So for the 5,000 square foot lot, it's 3 spaces, 1 per unit, and then the most we could do is 2 spaces for a triplex for the smaller lots. And then same with tri-quads, we start at the top, 4, 3, 2, and cottage clusters 1 per unit. But there's an opportunity to get for folks to have a lower requirement. And that's based on getting off-street credits for off-street parking. So for triplexes and quadplexes, the idea is that you could subtract 1 required off-street space that has to be on the lot for every on-street space abutting the lot. So in this picture here, there's lot lines here that might be hard to see, but there's a lot line right there that defines the lot. And then you look at between the 2 lot lines on the street, like, are there spaces there? And when we say are there spaces there, it has to be a legal place to park. Can't be in front of a fire hydrant or a mailbox. It's got to be paved. It has to be 20 feet long and 7 feet wide, and entirely within the site's lot lines. So I pulled some examples, aerials, just almost randomly from around the city, and so this is just somebody's house, and there's about 41 feet between the driveway and the lot line. So if someone came in and said, I want to put a triplex here or convert that house into a triplex, part of the review process would be they'd have to demonstrate that they have on-street parking and they can get a credit that's there. They might be able to get 2 here because it says 41 feet, but if there's any requirement to like be a little bit away from the driveway, or got a fire hydrant over here or something, they only get 1, or they might have none. But that would be the analysis you'd have to go through on a case-by-case basis when somebody wanted to do something. For cottage clusters, you could subtract 1 space for every on-street space for a maximum of 3 for every 5 cottages. For triplexes and quadplexes, the maximum discount is 2. One of the reasons it's set up that way is in a lot of cases you can get down to 2 spaces for a quadplex. If you manage to get 2 discounts, you can get down to 2, and it's actually pretty easy to get 2 spaces like right at the front of the lot, because once you get to 3, you need driveways and it takes up like a huge amount of space. So that's where we're trying to hit, because we're really trying to make sure there's enough room. There's this tension between open space and building and parking on a site, so we want to make sure we can get the housing, because that's the really thing that folks are really needing, and the need is really great. Another example is on a cul-de-sac. If you're looking for off-street credits, you might have a tougher time on a cul-de-sac. There's 15 feet from the driveway to here, and just on those circles, sometimes there's just not a lot of curb. This case, they wouldn't be able to get a credit. Here's another one. There's plenty of frontage, but there's no parking. The street's never been fully built out. So, in this case, if they didn't have to like build that half of the street, they wouldn't be able to get any credits. And then here's a corner lot, which is really interesting. It's kind of like the last one. The lot line's back here, which says to me this street probably isn't a full street. It hasn't been built all the way. Doesn't actually have official parking spaces. But if they were required, if they did a triplex or a quadplex here, and they were required to do the street improvements and actually build the curbs and the parking spaces, they might be able to get some credit and reduce their minimum parking requirement on the site. So that was a lot of the content. So I'll just kind of remind us where we are in the process, and we'll get to questions like seconds. We're seconds away from that. We're about right here, still writing the draft code, still a lot of time to comment on it. Probably in January, February, March is when people are going to see a lot about it, and it's going to go to Planning Commission and Council for review. I will say we have a first discussion with Planning Commission on December 15th. If you're interested in checking that out. And this is like one more thing, and it's a little fuzzy, but I wanted you to see if you wanted to let the radar. There's a climate friendly and equitable communities executive order that was signed by the governor, and there's a lot of new rules coming for making sure we have intense development, tall buildings, and centers like downtown Beaverton, which we're kind of already there. But there might be some rules that require cities to low minimum parking requirements. So this is one of those things, like I'm telling you about it, I feel kind of bad because I don't have a lot of details, but it's really evolving. And over the next couple of years, I just wanted to put it on your radar. You might see some other changes coming our way. So again, thank you so much for your time. I know it's getting toward late, and that was a lot of information, but I'm happy to answer questions or take any comments you might have. Thanks much.
Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions? Wait, where did they go? In here, Vice Chair McClean.
Yes, I think it's a great presentation. Thank you. I think one thing specific to the Traffic Commission I would have questions on is, like you talked about at the end about the parking. I understand the reason, we don't want to, for climate and other, reasons, we want to be able to promote alternate methods of transportation. But I think in reality, we find multiple families are living in single housing. So they're actually, using 3 or 4 vehicles for, one parking spot or no parking spot. So I'm curious if you can share any insight on the benefits of not requiring parking for those type of tenants. Like, I understand the benefits for developers. We want to try to promote development. We want to try to promote, better land use. But for the people that, maybe have the more social economic challenges of sharing a space, why would there be a benefit for them not having adequate parking?
We actually heard a lot about that during the project. The city has an inclusive housing cohort. So we have community members who have diverse races and ethnicities and backgrounds and experiences. We've really learned a lot from listening to them and others about what they need. So we actually heard similar comments about, there's 3 or 4 adults in the household and they all need to drive to work. They maybe don't live near a bus line. We're trying to find a middle ground. I mean, first of all, like you saw the state requirements, so we can't go to like eight parking spaces, but we're trying to find a middle ground where things start to work on average. I was looking at some data for Beaverton, and almost 50% of households, then that's households, so this should be the whole house in Beaverton, have no car or 1 car, according to census data from 2019. Which means, you're going to have those households with 3 cars or 4. But if you're in a neighborhood where it's a mix, we're hoping it averages out. It's not going to be perfect for sure, but I appreciate your question.
Okay, thanks.
Can one moment, Commissioner Urbanski, can you can you restate that comment? It's 50%. How many don't have a car?
It's I actually added up households with 0 cars and households with 1 car, and it's about 50%. So specifically, I'm going to say these numbers, but there's a little margin of error, so don't take them too literally. 0 cars, 9% of households. 1 vehicle available, 41.6% of households. Plus or minus a few percentage points because it's a survey.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Based on a survey that you went out, or what's the total number of the?
It's a U.S. Census product called the American Community Survey. So they do a sample, a statistically valid sample of Beaverton households.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that follow-up. Commissioner Urbanski?
Yeah, I looked at the Oregon census figures, the latest ones, and it says that 81% people drive to work in Oregon, 7.3% work from home, 3.8% walk, and less than 5% use public transport. So I think there's still a great need for people to use personal vehicles, especially if they're expecting visitors to come around or if there's more than one person working in the family, never mind teenagers who are learning how to drive. But my question is, how far into the future have the plans looked? Because many car manufacturers, Volvo, Jaguar, everybody is now phasing out internal combustion engine, going electric. So where are all these charging points going to be? They're not going to be on the street. So substituting on-street parking for off-street parking probably isn't a fair swap. And for example, in the case of quadplexes with less than 5,000 square feet, you say you only need 2 parking spaces. Well, you're going to have a turf war there or what? Especially if somebody's got an electric vehicle and they need to charge there every night. I mean, is this going to be something that we're going to inherit? We're going to have all these parking wars going on all the time. I don't know if you've looked that far into the future, but it's not that far away.
Yeah, so the key question for us, it's not an easy one, is what does the government require for parking? It's not really, so that's not exactly the same thing as how much parking will be provided. I mean, if you're building a quadplex, I guess we're trying to anticipate that a developer is going to say, if I want to rent these or sell them, folks are going to want to have a place to park. But some of them might decide, well, in this location, I don't think I'm going to need that to sell it, so I'm going to provide less. And yeah, I mean, so that's the decision that the city is trying to make right now. We know for that smaller lot size, we can only do 2, and we're hoping people make good decisions and we get a good outcome. But there may be, there may be situations where we have a little pinch on the on-street parking. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, I realize this is the minimum requirement, and will self-regulate. You know, if a complex only has 2 parking spaces, maybe they won't be able to rent it out because, you know, people have 2 cars in the family. Okay, thank you.
Thanks for the question.
Thank you. Commissioner Bobadilla.
Moore.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Commissioner Moore.
Commissioner Moore.
Thank you. My question was from when Mr. Martin was initially speaking about the requirements that the state had placed up on the minimum parking, and that we couldn't max that out, obviously, if they put a cap on that. I was curious as to what informed their decision, and that I'm weighing in on it a bit myself, in that I've been reading and watching just different documentaries about the international call for fewer cars in general. And I feel as though we're seeing globally a drive for us to have less than one car per household, which sounds like that happens for half of Beaverton anyway, based on your statistics. But what is informing the decision from the state level? Do you have that insight? Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. You know, it was a bunch of legislators that voted for it, so I'm sure they had a lot of reasons, but it was really focused on housing. I mean, that was a big topic at the legislature that year, and they were just trying to remove obstacles to providing housing. And I think, yeah, I'll just say that. Like, there was a slide earlier that went into more detail, but they're trying to remove obstacles and make sure it was hopefully even more affordable if there's more flexibility.
So that the developers were more likely to build affordable housing, or just more housing if there were requirements regarding vehicles and places to park them?
Well, I've got to be careful about the word affordable. I don't mean the like regulate, you know, I mean, there's a lot of meanings for that. So I don't mean the regulated affordable housing that's like permanently affordable for 60 years or whatever. They were trying to lower the cost and the obstacles to building housing, so more of it could be produced. And in the case of, you know, triplexes and quadplexes, you're more likely to get smaller units that are cheaper to rent because they're smaller, because you're often paying like in relation to square footage. That's more of the theme that they were trying to go for.
Anything else?
No, thank you.
All right, Commissioner Bobadilla.
My first question is, I understand legislators have these ideas and want to solve some of these problems, but does the city of Beaverton ever go out and give our voice, our concerns before legislators, you know, make a decision? Usually there is an opportunity to speak. Was that done here?
Yes, we do get opportunities to speak. The city usually has a lobbyist down in Salem, and we work through the Association of Oregon Cities as well. Sorry, the League of Oregon Cities. So they do that. I actually do not. I'm sorry to say, I don't recall the city's exact position on this. But I do know, I mean, I was on after they passed the law, the state agencies do rulemaking and they make it more specific. And I was on the technical advisory committee for that. So I was there trying to make sure we had options and flexibility as much as possible, consistent with the law. So we were in it. We did our best.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think you guys ever came to the traffic commission. I'm sure I wasn't here back then. It's going to be 2 years, and I remember some of this going on, but there's a lot of great wisdom here that they could have came and asked, hey, how could this be the other part that it could impact? So they could have heard the other side. And I'm just letting you know, because I know legislators say that, well, we do all these decisions and you guys have the opportunity to come and tell us how things can impact you, but you never choose to come. So if we don't speak up, our city will look, because we're no longer a little town and we are a growing city. We don't want to be Portland. And sometimes it feels like we're getting pushed to be Portland. There is a reason why people have moved to Beaverton a while ago. And even if that's something that needs to be reminded, and I remember that even from the Planning Commission, there used to be a great push before, like, we're not going to be Portland. And when we say that we want to give the developers that, let's hope they do the right thing, come on, Brian, we know they don't. When the rules were laxed by the Planning Commission, they never did. They wanted to push the envelope to be able to provide the least amount of parking even back then. If we don't put certain rules in place, they're not going to follow them. They're there to make money, and that's all they care. So I don't like the idea of, like, let's just hope they're going to make the right decision. No, that's why we have to create rules so they can follow them and we can protect the community. I'm venting, I apologize, and you're going to take the ramp out of here because you should have came to us first. Err on the most favorable decision. There's like, really? No, we have to always think for the worst, plan for the worst, hope for the best. Now we're actually going backwards. This is going to be a nightmare. It's a nightmare already with people coming in with the townhouses and people stating, I have no parking. I can't even get into my home. Thank you for letting me vent.
Yeah, well, thank you for the question and the comments, and I think the actionable thing I heard was we can come talk to you more. So I appreciate the invitation.
And we can go help you talk to. You need to let us, and if we want, and we can help. Obviously,
Sure.
this is what we do too, right?
Commissioner Chair Conway, I'll add to that. I think, Brian, we've on the experience with the Traffic Commission, we've heard, and this goes back years. I've been on, I think, 10 years now, that especially newer developments, lots of the edge of the Beaverton area, like I'll say 155th area is a common one, but anywhere there's new developments, I think it's great. We need to add more housing. There is a need for more housing. If it's more affordable, that's great too. But I understand the balance because we've seen the newer development, even if it's 10 or 20 years past, but the more recent development has a more dense housing, which is great, but it results into some type of traffic challenge. I don't say nightmare, but it turns into everybody's parking on the street. The streets, like you heard Mr. Khasho before, are only 24, 32 feet wide. And now two cars cannot travel up and down the street when cars are parked on both sides. So we've had to, with the traffic engineer and the traffic commission, have to put in no parking just so cars can go by. So something that might have been developed or planned one way now later gets changed. Because we have a safety concern, we're now having to take parking away because the street's just not wide enough. So I know that there's a challenge of planning, and those plans change. Like, here's a new plan we're going to develop, and who knows what will change in the future. But then when it was developed 10 or how many years ago to now, it's changed again. And we've even had that from homeowners. When I purchased this house in year 1999 or in 2010, this is what it was, and now it's different. And so that's something that the community does come often to the Traffic Commission to express those frustrations. So I think that's why, we're interested to hear what the future planning commissions and the plans are. And then, we're happy to share any feedback that people want to hear.
Thank you.
Vice Chair McClean. I do have a couple of questions or comments as well. Mr. Martin, the first one was that at first there was a lot of information, so thank you very much. Regarding some of the saturation areas, and I think Commissioner Bobadilla already mentioned part of that, and Commissioner McClean did as well. We just had to vote on people who testified that they would rather park in a ditch than have no parking, because it was more important to them to have a place to park than it was for safety. That was my interpretation of what folks were saying. They understood there was a concern about safety, but they're on the record as saying, I would rather park on a shoulder, which isn't illegal. They can apparently do that because that was not covered, I think, in the presentation about they get credits, but not having credits wasn't the same thing as not being able to park on a ditch in front of their house. So there were people who testified that rather than, in the interest of safety, having a no parking zone, they wanted to park on a shoulder that had no curb, no sidewalk, no anything, because they want a place to park. So when I think about the downtown saturation points and the places like that, it feels like also we allow a developer to build a single carport with a driveway, but the driveway doesn't hold a car. So you basically have a garage, a single car garage that's not used. They've met the requirement. If they have two cars though, they can't put the car in the driveway. So they have half a spot. People have to go out on the street as well, and it ends up being in front of us as well. The idea that Beaverton relies solely on, based on, to me, TriMet as the sole source of transit. is a concern that Commissioner Bobadilla brought up, that we talk about all these other options. There are no options. When I think of South Beaverton, TriMet isn't going out there until we ask them. They did not proactively go out there. There was no study on that. There was no request. There was no view. Murray's not going to be expanded. So I'd say that because we've seen a presentation that we want to, that the businesses and community are really, boy, they sure are excited to close some streets, and we're going to have the open air marketplaces, and they're going to line they're going to come downtown. We're taking away parking spots. People can eat outside. It's beautiful, Brian. We also heard a study though that you want to put in parking meters because we need to control traffic and parking because we're running out of parking spaces downtown Beaverton. So we've heard a proposal presentation that there's a study now being done to put metered parking in downtown Beaverton. So you're telling us we're going to be able to have more people go higher density. People doing a presentation telling me they want to close the streets because everybody loves it so they can have more open market things. And then I've got another presentation saying that we're considering metered parking in downtown. Like Commissioner Bobadilla said, nobody's asked us what they're doing, and we're getting a lot of things that saying everybody is for this. I think it's a big concern about if you're going to allow the density, and we are trying to change the culture, and not everybody can have 4 or 5 cars, and what are they going to do to get around? The zero, just 1 car for 50% of the city is kind of surprising. I'm just really surprised by that number when I think of how many cars and the traffic issues that have come up before this commission. And like Vice Chair McClean, 10 years we've been doing this, watching people say, I don't have enough places to park. And we're trying to close streets for some things. We're trying to add meters. We've switched parking and no parking zones. We've changed the time that people can park. And nobody seems to ever come to the commission and ask us what's going on. The planning commission approves something, and then 3 years later, something else changes, and suddenly you've got an issue before this commission that we have to try and deal with. Speed bumps and speed zones. And it's going to become a situation where it expands beyond. So I guess those were just, it was a little too much of a rant, I think, but there are some points in there that we have seen on those. And I have a couple of questions, which I will send you as well as, and include Mr. Khasho, so that you can understand, because there are a couple of questions about how some of the requirements would work in that presentation. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner Conway, for adding. You put such a great points there, and especially you and Commissioner McClean that have been on this committee for so long, and you have such good background. I've only been almost 2 years, and I've just seen so many interesting situations come about. And when this is about, like thinking, why didn't you guys even ask us for even at least input or allow us to share the kind of problems that come before us? And it's really frustrating, Mr. Martin, because the public, then our community, thinks that it's us, the traffic commission, that causes this and doesn't want to do anything about it. And they look to us to solve the problem. Yet our hands are half tied because of all of the other actions that were taken long before even asking us, hey, does this make sense? It looks beautiful on paper, but when we actually apply it, is it going to be functionable? All this housing, I don't think any of us are against it. I think we all know we absolutely need more housing. Doesn't mean that we need to not provide, request and require them to provide a garage. I mean, the developers have continued to build still amazingly, even though the costs were high, and they've still been able to sell their properties. So it's not just a developer problem. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Chair McClean, any other comments?
I was going to say one last comment, and it's hard to, again, there's so many cities in the U.S. that have lots of different challenges. I think Beaverton, one of the challenges is it's a drive-first city. For whatever reason, historically, it's the suburbs. But I've worked in public transit 22 years, and there are a lot of alternate methods of transit besides TriMet. But Beaverton has not invested the resources, from rideshare, whether it's Uber or to, like Hillsborough is doing its own internet. Beaverton could do its own Uber, or like e-bikes or scooters, or there's lots of different types of alternate transportation methods that can help connect. There's shopping districts in Southern California that have, free taxis to just get you around the shopping district, with the shopping district so huge. So I think, there are opportunities for the city of Beaverton to look at those alternate transportation methods to help connect some of those density housing, or, what they sometimes say feeders. So you can take a free, shuttle or something to connect you to TriMet or to the light rail like Max, because Max is great. We have that going through Beaverton. That's a great tool. But again, if you live in South Beaverton or certain areas that's not along the Max line or TriMet, you're driving. So I think, that's something I'd hope that the city of Beaverton, maybe with the Planning Commission or Traffic Commission, others really look at, if TriMet's not meeting those needs, what can the city of Beaverton do? Like Portland has a streetcar, and other cities have their own micro transit type of services that connect, certain parts of town. I do think there's a lot of methods out there that are climate friendly, that are eco-friendly. And so it's something that I think, would help kind of bridge those gaps, where if there's no parking, but there was an alternate, like, hey, did you know you can do this? Or, if it's carpool or what have you type of things. There's actually a pretty big carpool community in Beaverton, but not a lot of people know about it. So there's, I think, some education or advertisements like, hey, you live in an area like a duplex or a quadplex, start a carpool. And see if people would be interested in those type of things. But again, it's not something that's, I think, a lot of people know about. So I just want to add that for future planning or future discussions, is there's a lot of alternate transportation methods, but not everyone knows about them, or they're just not. I think Beaverton hasn't historically, invested in some of those resources.
Good comments. Thank you. I'll just add, FYI, I believe Washington County is doing its own transit study here soon. So you can keep an eye out for that. Might be interested in that. And then the city would really like to do an update of its transportation system plan, which can consider all those things. We just got to get some funding together, get it. But it's definitely on the list.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Martin. I think that other point on that, the TSP, the Washington County TSP for 2035, when we looked at it in 2005, I think it was, the display from Washington County was that approximately 49% of people lived in county and worked out of county, and 51% worked here but lived outside of it, right? Then in the 2035 plan, the projection was that was going to swap 1% basically, or 2% basically. 51% of the people were going to drive more, and 49% would get come. That number didn't change. And I haven't seen Beaverton consider a study on that as well, because this whole vision thing that came up, the vision survey that initially happened with the vision committee, the very first one, they're very excited about it. At whatever it was, 5,000 people respond. A city of 95,000, that's 5% of the population. But that spoke volumes about sidewalks, pedestrian safety, more bike routes, finishing the bike lanes, making all the connections to all the things that weren't fixed. And yet, what I see from your map in the zoning info is that the entire region in South Beaverton doesn't feel like is a walkability approach to the model. The model doesn't encourage people to leave their cars. We don't really even do that in downtown, right? Everything is so disjointed. You get Farmington and BHH Canyon in the middle of those that create changes. I think they did a study 15 years ago. The distance from Old City Hall to New City Hall is a half a mile. Most people think it's more than that, and they'll drive. No, and you've got this entire area down there with, I think, what was the projection, was 15,000 car trips daily in and out of that area, or at least based on the home numbers. It didn't seem like we're focusing on creating a walkability place, right? People don't walk to Progress Ridge now. And you're adding all of those homes out there. And I'm not just picking on that particular part, but you've got an opportunity to change that. And yet if you look out there, that is all single family homes. I understand what it's zoned for. I understand that there's some apartment complexes, but nobody came up and asked the commission, what are some things you've seen or what are some things you've observed? And yet the vision committee, whether you agree with some of the options in there or not, we're all about creating walkability nodes that work, and that we don't have that. And you don't need mass transit sometimes if you can walk to where you need to go. So just another consideration for when I watch how the zoning works and what we're trying to change in the zoning. They encourage more homes in areas that don't have any kind. I mean, if you look at the NAC breakdown, for example, Highland is like 95% residential. Everybody in there needs to drive because there's no commercial anywhere. And yet my particular NAC, not to pick on that, has a bunch of industrial, commercial, residential, all mixed in, but it's so disjointed, you almost have to drive as well. Or there's safety factors as well. But
We definitely have a legacy of past development to try to weave together better, don't we?
yeah, and what
some of it was and some of it wasn't.
Right, and I think if you look at that, it'd be, and to Vice Chair McClean's point, to see the TSP that Beaverton's going to do, that would be excellent, because when we looked at the Washington County one, you could tell that the disjoint between Hillsborough and Beaverton is already done. Why do the roads not match? Why does River Road need a big jog in it? Because Farmington didn't think about where it was going to go. Tile flat had come up 20 years ago. What's the point to that? I mean, there were a bunch of issues that have already come up that were just, we really would like to see the city focus and bring those together, because you're going to have Garden Home and Allen situations, and it's left to us to try and figure out what to do. I mean, you just got a sidewalk on there. You just put some sort of thing that's not even a sidewalk. It's just, they said, can you pave 2 feet on here so somebody can walk and not be in the mud? That's all they did. And yet that was the #1 issue, and you've got cars and traffic on there. So to Commissioner Bobadilla's point, yeah, I think we'd love to have somebody come and ask us instead of always needing to go find the person to talk to after the study's already been done. I applaud you, though. This is the first time, we've heard the presentation, and yet we've been well aware of the ADU situation for quite a while. So first approach to this commission. Thank you.
Sure. Sure, I want to add something. You brought a good point. I wonder, what is the demographic? I mean, right now, my point being, I remember when I first moved into Beaverton, it was more people that, families that were raising children compared to downtown Portland. Downtown Portland, it was honestly, it was a lot more single people or elder people that who didn't have children. So I'm just kind of curious, because that really makes an impact of the kind of city that you're growing. I mean, that's why people were moving here. And that's why a lot of people with families, truthfully, Mr. Martin, people want to have a car to be able to commute your child. You're not going to want to wait another hour to get in the bus to take your kid to soccer practice. Versus, downtown Portland, you have a different demographic of people living there.
Well, I think we're going to do a presentation with the city council in January on the demographic changes with the new census. So I'll make a note. I can send the info to Jabra, and you can share it with you about that.
That even impacts just traffic and everything, because as everybody, the whole United States, that the elderly population is growing rapidly, and that's going to impact all of us on how we provide for them. And even in our city, and I see our city being one of those where a lot of elderlies will most likely seek us out too.
Thank you. Appreciate all the comments and thoughts. Anything else for Mr. Martin or Sarah? Any comments?
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate that. Excellent. Let me go back here.
Really quick, thank you for actually waiting, because if the public would have heard some of this and they would have hung out, oh my God, we probably would have still been. So thank you. You probably knew what you were really doing. Thank you.
I wanted to make sure they could go like have a nice night after that if they wanted to. Like I would have loved to have them hear this.
Yeah, I would like to see more people do that involvement. I think for anybody that's been to city council, I think that's one of the biggest disappointments. And in fact, we had that issue when we met in person, is how many times a large high interest issue would be the first hearing, and as soon as it was done, people would get up and leave. Same as city council. It would be amazing if people would just sit through the entire session to understand what city councilors have to go through, what it takes to do that. Even the good folks on this commission, like Vice Chair McClean, it's 10 years of a lot of meetings, a lot of input. Commissioner Moore is also on a couple of committees. It's a lot of time and effort. It would just be nice to see people take that involvement. It was nice there were so many people this evening for the hearing, but as I think Commissioner Moore, is it you that suggested, more involvement or sign up for the committee? Or Commissioner Bobadilla, please, sign up and be part of that. So, all right, thank you. Appreciate the time, and it was really good interest in everything. All right, Mr. Khasho, is there any updates or comments? Where are we at here? Sorry, we'd be on to old business or new business. I see none.
I don't have any. As for new business, we will be having a January meeting, and we have a couple of issues that we'll bring during that meeting, and it's time for new officers election during that time.
Okay. Very good. All right then. Anything else from anyone? New business to bring up? All right, with that in mind then, we will consider the meeting adjourned, and I appreciate your time. Happy holidays to everyone, and thank you so much.
Bye, everyone. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas.
Thank you.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Thanks for everything you guys do. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you all. Yeah.
Sgt Shaw.
Have a good
Stephanie,
weekend,
thank you so
Jabra.
much. Yeah,
You're
you guys
welcome.
have a great time.
Thank you.
All right, thanks you too. Nice work tonight.
Bye.
All right.